In this episode, young traveling companions Lauren and Hito are snorkeling in India's Bay of Bengal. An enormous crocodile takes them by surprise, dragging Lauren beneath the surface. Hito tries to fight it off, desperately trying to save his friend, but it's in vain. When he calls the authorities, they're suspicious of his claims and begin to suspect foul play. That is until Hito's underwater camera is recovered from the sea floor and the police play back the video. Hit like and subscribe. This is Fierce. Lauren Fila was a 25-year-old woman who lived in Morristown, New Jersey. She was full of life, someone who would light up the room when she walked in, someone who volunteered her time to those in need, a strong and much-loved member of the local community, a Christian who volunteered with the youth ministry. But Lauren had had it tough over the past few years. You would never tell from her strong exterior and unfaltering smile, but she and her family had suffered a terrible loss. In 2006, her sister had a rock climbing accident in which she fell to her death. And although the family still mourned that loss, they somehow got through it. Now, 4 years later, tragedy was about to strike again. In April 2010, Lauren was traveling through India. She had decided to take one last adventure before settling down into a new career. Her whole life, she had enjoyed art. She graduated from Vanderbilt University, having studied art. She often produced bright, vivid, surrealist oil paintings, but also fine, detailed charcoal sketches. Following her passion and flair, she completed a master's in which she gained a distinction from Sotheby's Institute of Art in London. Now, a year later, she decided to switch paths and embark on a career in social care. She had benefited from it enormously during her own grief at losing her sister, and now she wanted to give back. She was passionate about helping people and was always at the other end of the phone for those in need. Lauren had met a 24-year-old man by the name of Hito Chadha through a mutual friend. He had been born in Morristown, and the pair hit it off. Hito's father had grown up in India, and that's where the couple decided to journey to that April. Visiting India was the final adventure Lauren was looking for. Situated in the Bay of Bengal are the beautiful Andaman Islands. They are picture perfect. Flowery white sand, turquoise blue waters, and a backdrop of lush greenery. The islands offer tourists a mix of relaxation and adventure. Lauren and Hito stayed in the wooden lodges at Barefoot Resort on Havelock Island. These rooms with thatched roofs are surrounded by jungle with walkways which lead down to the white sandy beach. A short distance away is Neil's Cove, an idyllic spot for snorkeling in the clear waters. The cove was situated just off Radhanagar Beach, a place deemed safe by locals and where locals had never even seen a crocodile. In fact, the habitat was not considered suitable for saltwater crocodiles. There were no mangroves to provide cover, and the shallows led out to a reef and the open sea beyond. But what follows suggests otherwise. Hito was an experienced scuba diver and surfer. He was at home in the sea. The pair decided to go for a spot of snorkeling and headed for Neil's Cove. As the pair entered the water, they had no idea that there was an enormous reptile out on the hunt in the open sea. The water was calm, visibility was good. They swam out to the reef, spotting brightly colored fish and coral, pointing sea anemones and starfish out to each other. The water was warm, the sun beat down. But then suddenly a 12-foot crocodile came out of nowhere. The couple hadn't spotted it powering through the water towards them. They had been too distracted by the beautiful underwater scene below them. Its tail swished from side to side, its legs tucked into its body, a streamlined predator coursing through the water with ease. It had sensed the two swimmers in the water from a short distance away, and now it homed in on them. Suddenly, Lauren was struck by the animal. It immediately grabbed her legs and held her in its jaws, knocking the air from her lungs as it dragged her underwater. Hito saw the whole attack play out. He was just feet from Lauren. He had been filming underwater with his camera when the crocodile came in for the kill. Instantly, he let go of the camera and swam over to Lauren. If he could have jumped in front of the crocodile, then he would have, but it all happened so fast. It was an ambush attack. Out of respect for Lauren's parents, he has never disclosed the struggle that ensued. He has never described the horror that he witnessed, but he was incredibly brave swimming towards the crocodile. He tried to rescue Lauren. He tried to fight the animal off, but it was too powerful. It was too strong. He had no weapon. He had no way of pulling the animal off her. He claims it was pure instinct that took over. He didn't hesitate for 1 second. Lauren needed his help, and he was there, trying desperately to pull her free from the jaws. He tried to get himself between Lauren and the croc, but it was no use. The crocodile had Lauren securely and wasn't letting go. Then the crocodile swam off with her. There was nothing Hiro could do. Seeing his friend taken away in such terrible circumstances is something that will replay in his mind forever. Not being able to save her is something that will live with him for the rest of his life. He swam as fast as he could back to shore and ran for help, but it was too late. When authorities arrived, there was no sign of Lauren. They regarded Hiro's story suspiciously. He had last been seen walking to a secluded cove with a young woman, and now she had gone missing. Alarm bells began ringing in the police officials' ears. They didn't buy his story either. There had never been a crocodile seen in that cove. Not ever. It wasn't the right habitat for them. They wouldn't venture that far from the seclusion of vegetation. The distraught Hiro tried to explain what happened, but his words fell on deaf ears. A search was launched for Lauren, but as the hours passed, Hiro's story seemed less and less likely. It would be 2 days before Lauren's body was recovered. Miraculously, Hiro's camera was also recovered from the seafloor. It was to provide a crucial piece of evidence. Until then, officials suspected he was responsible for Lauren's disappearance, and things could have gone horribly wrong for him. However, when officials played the recording back, the attack and Hiro's heroic effort in trying to fight off the 12-foot giant could just about be seen. The camera caught a glimpse of the attack as it sank downwards in the water column, capturing the scene near the surface. Lauren's family was of course devastated to hear the news. She was due home shortly after that snorkeling trip. She was due to attend a concert set up for a church youth project, but instead of it being devoted to the youth, it was now performed in Lauren's memory. Her cousin was absolutely appalled that there were no signs warning tourists of crocodiles. She said that Lauren would never have entered the water if she had known of the potential dangers. The family found out after the tragedy that a crocodile sanctuary, Lohabarak Crocodile Sanctuary, was just 45 miles from the island. In the past, there have been reports of some crocodiles escaping. The local government came under criticism. It needs to decide to either keep the area as a crocodile sanctuary or as a safe location for tourists to visit. Swimming and snorkeling do not go side by side with crocodile sanctuaries. When 34-year-old Juan Carlos Laverde woke up on August 3, 2022, all he could think of was the promotional video he was about to make for his company Defeat X. Juan, an experienced triathlete, a former U.S. Air Force pararescue man, paramedic, and firefighter, was in his prime. It would be an exciting day for him. A member of the Oldsmar Fire Department, Juan was shooting an instructional video which included hiking and swimming in Lake the Notasasa near Tampa. What he didn't bargain for was 12 feet of prehistoric fury that was about to ruin his day. When living in the Sunshine State and sharing a habitat with 1.3 million alligators, you just have to be careful. Alligators can be deadly, and Juan knew the risks. For someone as fit and strong as Juan, swimming in the lake doing his thing would be a cinch. He and Matt, his new videographer, had already scouted around. There was no sight of alligators anywhere. Moreover, a lot was at stake. Defeat X needed some serious promotion. The company was involved in outdoor activities, including biking and swimming. Its videos starring Juan raised money for charities, including cancer research. Juan has done countless videos taking part in multiple outdoor races, including triathlons. It was all very typical. When Juan and Matt arrived at Lake the Notasasa, they reviewed their sequences and the various shots that needed capturing. The lake was clear. The weather was good too. Matt would be shooting with his drone, a decision that would lead to a dramatic capture of the attack instead. Matt decided he wanted to shoot the filming sequence first. Juan got ready for the shoot. He was an Ironman, a seasoned triathlete with several races under his belt. Moreover, he was a strong swimmer, and he had spent countless hours in the water. It was then 2 p.m. There was just Matt and his drone. No support team, no kayak team in the water, and no safety elements. Throwing caution to the winds, Juan dove into the water. Everything was going perfectly. Juan was in his element in the water, and Matt was busy navigating the drone overhead a distance away. Suddenly, 350 yards into the swim, Matt saw something on the screen approaching Juan. His jaw dropped, and at that moment, he was consumed with fear. He knew exactly what it was, yet he just could not warn Juan. It was a giant alligator. It was 12 feet at least, and it was speeding toward Juan like a torpedo. Juan couldn't see a thing and kept on swimming toward the reptile. The gator attacked his head, and as Juan recalled, I felt the equivalent of a telephone pole hit my face. In that split second, Juan didn't know what hit him until his stroke moved forward and he felt teeth, scales, and a huge snout. The reptile instantly clamped its teeth down on Juan. That was when he knew it was an alligator. Fear gripped him, but his instinct was to fight. The alligator was so fast that Juan's head and chest were already inside its mouth. It was a female, and if she was nesting, things were even worse. It made the gator even more aggressive, and when you're up against a monster like that, your chances are slim. It seemed at that moment everything occurred in slow motion. When the gator clamped down, he felt its teeth pierce his flesh. The next moment, he heard a pop. That was the sound of his jaw breaking, yet he did not realize it. Juan was a fighter. He refused to be killed by the reptile. In the hospital, Juan described that very moment. I felt the teeth clamp down and instantly realized it was a gator. My entire head and upper chest were inside her mouth. Then she bit down, and I felt the teeth pierce my flesh. There was a loud popping sound, then instinct took over. Juan grabbed the gator's upper and lower jaw with both hands. He described how he felt God give him superhuman strength at the time to pry open the creature's jaws. The gator's teeth were dug into his lower chest and shoulder blade. He just had to keep them apart, or else it would have been all over. Juan then did the next thing that came into his mind. He grabbed the tip of the gator's snout and pulled hard. She chomped down again, and this time her teeth dug into his skull. The gator then tried the death roll, hoping to end it for Juan, but he too wasn't letting go. Both man and beast rolled a complete 360 degrees in the water. As soon as the gator was upside down, Juan broke free. He began swimming for his life, reaching the dock in record time. As soon as Juan reached the dock, he pulled himself up to safety, but it was then that he felt a searing pain consume him. He fought to stay conscious even though the pain was torture. It crushed him, making him feel as if he were still in the alligator's mouth. Juan just had to let Matt know he was okay. He tried making himself believe that too. It kept him going, even though he was pretty messed up. He got onto the road and found a house. Luckily for Juan, the residents were at home. They were horrified to see his condition, but acted swiftly when Juan asked them to dial 911. By now, Juan was losing a lot of blood. Eventually, he found Matt, who already knew something was terribly wrong. He had seen the shape of something large propelling towards Juan. It was even captured live on video. An ambulance finally arrived, and a few hours later, Juan underwent a 6-hour surgery at Tampa General Hospital. Juan required face and jaw reconstruction surgery, a craniotomy where doctors removed his right temporal lobe, pierced by the fractured bone from his cracked skull. His shoulder and chest needed repairing too. Juan suffered severe punctures to the brain. He now has no bones on the right side of his head. His jaw was wired shut for a few weeks, but the guy's a fighter. Juan will probably need several more surgeries until he's finally okay. But being the kind of man Juan is, he will recover. The attack on Juan Carlos Laverde was not the only one. 4 fatal alligator attacks were confirmed in Florida in 2022. Besides, there have been 20 alligator bite incidents reported across the state. Alligator experts like Brandon Fisher stress the importance of practicing caution in a state known for its vast alligator population. Alligators can be extremely dangerous at certain times of the year, especially during nesting and hatching seasons. That's when the females can get protective and highly deadly. This is probably why the female attacked Juan, thinking he may have been going for her nest. As for Juan, he considers the attack a lesson, saying, "Every time I don't mitigate the risk, I suffer the consequences. I threw things to the wind, and it was serious for me. I've got to learn that lesson." He went on to say, "Perseverance and joy. With that spiritual gift, I was able to survive." On March 16, 2009, 11-year-old Bryony Ann Goodsell, her younger sister, 7-year-old Bethany Goodsell, and her friend, Naomi Lang, were playing at home in Darwin's rural outskirts. It was a Sunday, and the girls were enjoying some free time, despite the weather. March is a moody month in the top end of the Northern Territory in Australia. It's the last month, at least officially, of the wet season, meaning there's always a possibility of floods and cyclones. The days are hot and humid, and thunderstorms are not at all uncommon. With such weather, exploring the outdoors can be a little tiring, but not when you're a kid and the whole world seems like a wonderful adventure. All 4 of them got on bikes, and then they started pedaling together. It was a good, honest day of fun. They weren't going too far from home, just somewhere they could swim. Bryony and her friends called the creek crossing Black Jungle. They'd swum there before, so they knew the spot well. From their understanding and previous experience, there was nothing to be feared in those waters. The area was accessible to the public, or better said, part of it was accessible to the public, even young kids wanting to play in the water. The creek crossing was immediately adjacent to the Lambell's Lagoon access gate to the Black Jungle Conservation Reserve. Lambell's Lagoon is a mostly rural suburban area on the fringe of metropolitan Darwin, Australia. Bryony Goodsell, her sister, and their friends were all part of the community's few hundred inhabitants. The Black Jungle Conservation Reserve, the designated place for their adventure on March 16, 2009, is a 10,000-acre protected area and part of the Adelaide River coastal floodplain. It's a wetland habitat supporting large numbers of wildlife. The reserve's open woodland savanna, its monsoon rainforest, and swamps provide rich habitats for numerous varied species, such as magpie geese, water pythons, and the terrifying saltwater crocodiles. To Bryony and the rest of the children, the area was simply perfect for outdoor adventures. They usually swam in the creek when it filled with water during the wet season. On that Sunday, the kids initially swam near the access gate to the reserve, so not quite in the protected area. Each access gate was fitted with a sign indicating access by permit only. It wasn't unusual for rangers to deal with illegal entry by hunters. Some members of the public also used their vehicles to gain illegal entry to the reserve, most often than not by damaging gates and fences. As for permits, they were only granted for scientific research. Bryony Goodsell, her sister Bethany, and their friends Naomi and Aidan swam for a while on the public side of the fence. But shortly after, they decided to go further downstream to another crossing, this one located inside the reserve. This new creek crossing had a deeper but less fast-flowing pool of water. In order to get to this spot, the 4 children had to go through a wire boundary fence and walk a short distance. Despite the reserve's reputation as a habitat for some dangerous species, there was no warning about the possibility of crocodile activity in the area. As the reserve rangers knew, there was plenty of crocodile activity within the reserve, especially in the wet season. But despite this, the rangers weren't aware that people were swimming at the reserve. After all, public access was strictly prohibited. This meant, at least in the rangers' perspective, that the chance of interaction between crocodiles and humans was low in the reserve. But people were swimming there. Shortly after the decision to swim elsewhere had been taken, the kids reached the creek crossing inside Black Jungle Reserve. The water levels were indeed high, the way they'd expected, but the creek was also flowing fast. Any adult might have hesitated to get into the water. Most likely, an adult wouldn't have entered the water at all. The conditions were perfect for drowning. But these were kids. The youngest of them was only 7 years old, the oldest only 12. Children aren't the best at assessing the potential dangers of a situation. And to make matters even worse, these particular kids had no idea there were crocs in the area. So instead of worrying about dying and turning around to leave, the group of 4 entered the water at about 5:30 p.m. They splashed around, swam, and played, happy to have some fun. But then everything changed in the blink of an eye. Suddenly, 11-year-old Bryony Goodsell started to scream for help. The other kids turned toward the girl and saw she was starting to go under the water. At first, one of her friends thought Bryony had a vine wrapped around her waist and she was struggling to free herself. But then the same friend saw the truth was far more terrifying. A crocodile tail came out of the water and then went right back in. "Crocodile!" their friend yelled, turning to look for the other children. When the kids looked back, Bryony was gone. The children scrambled out of the water towards safety. Authorities were alerted. Police started looking for Bryony. Human remains and a pair of shorts were found the following day, on Monday, over 1,400 feet from where the girl disappeared on Sunday. DNA tests confirmed the remains were indeed Bryony's. Coroner Greg Kavanaugh confirmed the death was due to a crocodile attack. Even more, evidence suggested it was a saltwater crocodile of about 10 feet that attacked the little girl. Saltwater crocodiles are not only the largest living reptile, but they are also the most aggressive crocodile species. They are apex predators, preying on any living creature within their reach. The search for the crocodile responsible for the attack continued throughout Monday, but it was called off on Tuesday. The reasoning behind this decision was simple. Rangers believed the crocodile had headed back into a floodplain, which made the search impossible. Floodplains teem with crocodiles. There was no guarantee that authorities would be able to pinpoint the exact animal that killed Bryony Ann Goodsell. An investigation found that residents in the area had no idea there were crocodiles in the creek. The only resident that seemed to be aware crocodiles could be in the creek had also swam in the exact same waters before. Bryony's mother, Charlene O'Sullivan, believed the wording of the sign "access by permit only" was misleading. She argued that the kids might have believed the sign indicating that vehicles and hunting were indeed prohibited, but not entering the area by foot. Even more, signs indicating prohibited activities, such as swimming, were also added. And finally, all entry gates to the reserve were fitted with crocodile warning signs. While crocodile culling was discouraged, authorities reviewed and adjusted the saltwater crocodile management plan after Bryony's death. The current crocodile management plan, prepared and approved by the Northern Territory government, promises the community that there will be increased attention to and efforts with regard to public safety, said Coroner Greg Kavanaugh. Bryony's family asked to be left alone to grieve their huge loss. They released a statement calling Bryony a beautiful, innocent, and fearless child that touched the lives of many. The family also called Bryony's death a tragic accident. Their statement said, "Kids being kids don't always see possible dangers. No one is to blame for this tragedy. It is just one of those things." It was February 22, 2023, a Wednesday. Alistair McPhee and his dog, Magic Molly, were enjoying a beautiful day together. McPhee and his Rottweiler had been traveling all across Australia. Far North Queensland was only one of their stops. The two of them had a special bond. They were best friends and traveling buddies. The day was somewhat gloomy. The sky was overcast and the water was reflecting its gray color. Evening was close, but the day was far from over, at least to McPhee. The man and his dog were at the Bloomfield boat ramp at Ayton, north of the city of Cairns, and about 30 miles south of Cooktown. McPhee wanted to enter the water, despite the fact that it looked anything but inviting. Sure, Bloomfield River was gray and quite angry that day, But the 37-year-old man wasn't one to back off from a challenge. In fact, McPhee had a wild plan. He wanted to enter the river for two reasons. First, Magic Molly, his Rottweiler, could do with a drink of water. Secondly, McPhee had expressed his interest in wanting to catch a water python. That's probably why he wanted to have proof of them entering the water. After all, why do something like this if no one could see it? McPhee put his recording device down on the ground, stripped down to his swim shorts, and made sure Magic Molly followed him. Together, man and dog entered the water, unaware that their fate was about to change. What Alistair McPhee didn't know, or perhaps had ignored, was that his plan was immensely dangerous, and not because of any water pythons. We don't know whether Alistair McPhee didn't know about the warning or he simply didn't care. What we do know is that at about 5:30 p.m. that Wednesday, the man and his Rottweiler, Magic Molly, entered the water. They only took a few steps before the reality came crashing down. McPhee was not knee-deep yet when something huge shot out of the gray water, opened its strong jaws, and then clamped them down on the man's leg. Magic Molly acted within seconds. The pupper was brave enough to make an attempt to save Alistair McPhee, no matter the cost. In an instant, the huge crocodile turned its attention to the dog. Once again, it opened its jaws. This time, the terrifying teeth closed around the dog. McPhee could have taken the opportunity to save himself and get out of the water, but to him, that was never really an option. Instead, the man started punching the huge crocodile. His punches rained down on the animal, but they weren't enough. The crocodile was simply too strong. It won the battle. Instead of letting Magic Molly go, the crocodile went back underwater, the brave dog still in its mouth. McPhee watched in shock, but there was nothing he could do to save Magic Molly. The best he could do was save himself. Bloodied and struggling with shock, the 37-year-old man didn't know what to do. Luckily, a nearby ranger happened to witness the attack. The woman rushed to help McPhee. She had just finished first aid training and acted quickly. The man was treated at the Wujal clinic before a rescue helicopter airlifted him to Cairns Hospital. The man's condition was stable, but he had to undergo surgery the next morning. Still, the physical pain he experienced was nothing compared to the hurt of having lost his beloved dog. Alistair McPhee was devastated. A saltwater crocodile is no negligible foe. The saltwater crocodile is the world's largest living reptile. They can grow up to a length of 20 feet and a weight of 3,300 pounds. They're apex predators, capable of prevailing over almost any animal that enters their territory, including humans. They have strong tendencies to see us humans as prey, and usually humans don't stand a chance against these creatures. Alistair McPhee himself wouldn't have probably survived the attack were it not for Magic Molly's courage and loyalty. Thursday, February 24th, a day after the attack, wildlife officers managed to shoot a huge crocodile measuring 14 feet. The crocodile was found some 700 feet away from where the attack happened. Magic Molly's remains were found inside the animal's stomach. Killing the crocodile, authorities declared, hadn't been a choice. It had been a necessity. It's important for communities in croc country to feel safe and for problem crocodiles to be dealt with appropriately. Remember, warning signs are not there as decoration, and swimming in croc country is a choice. As soon as news of the attack reached the public, several theories surfaced as to why Alistair McPhee had entered the water. The reason? McPhee failed to officially mention it. He told authorities Magic Molly had been thirsty, so he'd taken the dog to the boat ramp for a drink of water. But comments in a Facebook thread in the months leading up to the attack have since surfaced. It's hard to go full bush here. Everything is native land. I want to catch a big water python, but the crocs, you see, McPhee wrote to a friend. But the friend wasn't as enthusiastic as McPhee. As far as the crocs go, just don't develop a pattern of waterside visits, they said. McPhee issued an official statement while he was still in the hospital, recovering from his injuries. He thanked staff at Cairns Hospital for looking after him. He also thanked Magic Molly, who the man said was always by his side. Alistair McPhee stated, "I have unfortunately learned the hard way. Everyone needs to be croc-wise in croc territory. While I am recovering from my injuries, I am asking people to please respect my privacy." It was a Saturday on June 7, 2014, when Bill Scott and his wife Rosalind headed out to Darwin, Australia, and made their way to Bill Dean Billabong. The Billabong, which is located on the South Alligator River system inside Kakadu National Park, was one of Bill's favorite places in the entire world. The man was nothing if not an enthusiastic fisherman. He'd been going to the Billabong for the past 20 years, often joined by his family. In fact, Bill would camp there 2 or 3 times a year, taking every opportunity to spend some quality time in that special place. The man loved anything that had to do with the outdoors and the landscape of the Northern Territory. He loved buying maps and planning trips to remote locations. He had decades of experience as a bushman, a fisherman, and a boater. That was his lifestyle, and he was well aware of both the dangers and the beauties of nature. Once Bill and Rosalind arrived at the Billabong, they were greeted by their son Aaron and his wife Joanne. Like his father, Aaron was also deeply devoted to the outdoors. He'd been going on trips into the wild ever since he was a kid, always an enthusiastic presence at his father's side. Both Bill and Aaron had their boats, and they were eager to get out on the water and start fishing amidst the beauty of Kakadu National Park. Kakadu National Park is a World Heritage Site with diverse landscape, flora, and fauna. Many plant and animal species in the park are rare, endangered, vulnerable, or endemic, perfectly adapted to their habitat. But there are some species that thrive inside the park, so much so that they are now considered a problem. It is the case of crocodiles, which have, over time, taken over the park's waterways. Crocodile hunting has been banned since 1972. Ever since, their number has skyrocketed, and some experts consider there to be an overpopulation. In fact, some even speculate crocodiles inside the Kakadu National Park are now as large and as numerous as before European settlement. Bill Scott knew there were crocodiles in the park. He never took unnecessary risks. Once he and his wife Rosalind arrived at the Bill Dean Billabong, they met up with Aaron, their son, and Joanne, their daughter-in-law. They had breakfast together, catching up. Then, at about 10 a.m., they put their boats in the water, ready to head out on the Billabong and start fishing. The family was cautious enough to look for crocodiles, but there were none in the water. Still, they knew to be careful near the edges of the water. Their small boats were perfect for navigating on the Billabong. They moved upstream for about 3 miles. Then Bill and his family started fishing. They weren't in a hurry. It was a Saturday morning, and they planned to camp in the park until Monday. The family spent the next 4 hours fishing and chatting, happy to take in the sun and be with each other. At about 2 p.m., they decided it was time to head back to the camp. Bill and his son moored their boats. Then Aaron and his wife Joanne left to go up the bank to fetch the 60-liter tank the family usually took camping. They needed to fill it and then let it sit in the sun, a simple procedure that would guarantee warm water for washing in the evening. Aaron entered the water up to his knees. He knew there were crocodiles, and he didn't want to risk his life. He was in and out in seconds, only filling half of the tank. The rest would have to be filled by the whole family, but in a seemingly safer manner. Aaron then carried the tank to a flat spot on the bank. Meanwhile, Bill was still in their own boat. He was at the back of his small boat. He took a bucket, leaned over the boat's edge, filled the bucket with water, and then passed the vessel to his wife, Rosalind, who was standing on the bank. Rosalind took the bucket and then handed it to Joanne further up the bank. Joanne finally handed it to Aaron, who poured the water inside the tank. It was teamwork. Everyone chipped in. After the second bucket, the tank was nearly full, and the family discussed whether a third bucket was needed or not. Rosalind decided to hand one of the buckets back to Bill and have him fill it, but the man never got the chance. Suddenly, the boat began to rock. At the same time, Rosalind noted a small ripple in the water. The harsh movement knocked Bill Scott off balance. Struggling to steady himself, 62-year-old Bill Scott put his hands out towards the back of the boat, and that's when it happened. A massive crocodile shot out of the water from behind the motor with an unexpected speed. The animal closed its huge jaws around Bill's left arm, shoulder, and chest. It was over in seconds. In an instant, the huge creature snatched Bill Scott from the boat and dragged him deep beneath the water's surface. Rosalind and Joanne watched in horror. Aaron, who had his back turned, thought he heard his father say something, but once he turned around toward his father, he only saw a splash. All of them started crying in terror. Aaron raced to the boat and started circling the area, hoping his father would somehow manage to free himself from the croc's mouth and swim back to the surface. In reality, there was nothing they could do to help the man. He was nowhere to be seen. The family started screaming louder. "Bill, if you can hear us, make a noise and we'll come find you," they called out. But there was no answer. Aaron then jumped into his boat, reversed it some 50 feet, stopped and looked around. Nothing. Then he spotted a ripple about 165 feet downstream. He chased it, but once again saw nothing. Aaron then hurried to a nearby resort to raise the alarm, leaving Rosalind and Joanne at the billabong. The women kept watch, and then they saw Bill's body floating to the surface, face down in the water. Rosalind tried to start the boat, but couldn't get it to start. Instead, she rowed it into the billabong, intent on retrieving her husband's body. But by the time Rosalind made it out, Bill's body had disappeared again, dragged beneath the surface by the powerful animal. Once Aaron returned with help, they resumed their search, but all efforts had to be ceased once it got dark. The search recommenced the following morning. Just before noon, Water Cop Wade Rogers shot a crocodile fitting the description of the one that took Bill. The crocodile measured 15 feet. It was indeed a huge creature. An autopsy was conducted at the location. As soon as rangers opened up the body, they were met with a gruesome sight. Bill Scott's remains were found inside the crocodile's stomach. Bill Scott's tragic fate sparked an inquest indicating that crocodiles have become familiar with humans and boats and generally have not developed the fear of humans that once existed when humans were also predators. This means crocodiles in the area are no longer afraid to snatch humans out of their boats. Of the 21 people killed by crocs in the Northern Territory since 1974, 4 died in 2014, the largest annual toll since records began. Alligators are not among the reasons people choose to retire in Florida. It's more about the weather, the beaches, the active adult communities, and the lower cost of living. But despite this, many Florida residents know that they share their space with the huge reptiles. There are over 1 million alligators in Florida, and every one of them can be a possible threat under the right, or you know it, wrong circumstances. When it comes to alligator attacks, the best way to avoid them is to keep your distance from the cold-blooded animals. But that's not always possible. Since alligators have inhabited Florida's waters for centuries and they don't seem to be going anywhere, many residents have come to regard them as permanent fixtures to their communities. Gloria Surge lived in the Spanish Lakes Fairways community in northern St. Lucie County for 20 years, and Gloria, like her neighbors, knew there were alligators in the community's lake. But over time, they've come to be desensitized to the animals. After all, the gators spent their days basking in the sun, seemingly too lazy and disinterested to pose a real threat to the community. Residents in the Spanish Lakes Fairways community had even come to call one of the alligators Henry. It was just how it was, life and its little oddities. It was around noon on February 20th, 2023, when Gloria Surge decided to take her dog for a walk. It was a daily habit. Trooper, her small black and white Shih Tzu, needed the exercise. Gloria loved her dog dearly. At 85 years old, the woman was a widow. Her children were all adults, and she had several grandchildren, but she lived alone with the dog in the Spanish Lakes Fairways community, in the county seat of St. Lucie County, Fort Pierce. Like many other communities for active adults, Spanish Lakes Fairways offers a large number of amenities, such as golf or tennis, but people almost always need the presence of another being. That's why so many of us have pets, and many of us would do anything for our pets. They're part of the family. Gloria Surge was the type of person who would have done anything for her dog. That noon on February 20th, 2023, she took Trooper for a walk around the neighborhood. It was a beautiful, quiet day in a beautiful, quiet place. After a while, Gloria and Trooper made their way toward one of the small lakes in the area. The lakes, or ponds, were all connected. As they made their way toward the body of water, Trooper was more than excited. Once they got to the edge of the water, little Trooper seemed enthralled by some new, exciting smell. Gloria let him smell away, not really paying attention to the dog or to the lake. If anything, she looked somewhere over the horizon, maybe content to let Trooper experience something so obviously exciting to him. But not paying attention to her surroundings was a mistake, especially since she was near water in Florida, with a small and very lively dog being next to her. As the woman stood there, looking over the horizon, something was happening. Something big was coming toward her, moving swiftly just beneath the surface of the water. Its rapid movements caused small, rippling waves, but Gloria Surge was unaware, perhaps too caught up in her thoughts to notice. Trooper, the woman's small Shih Tzu, was equally unaware of the incoming danger. But that something beneath the water surface was coming closer and closer by the second. And then, just as Gloria was making the first steps to leave the edge of the lake, a massive alligator burst out of the water and lunged for Trooper. Gloria Surge must have been terrified. As soon as the alligator shot out of the water, Trooper started moving erratically, desperate to get away from the huge reptile. The sudden movements and the fear caused Gloria to fall down hard on the ground, but she wasted no time before acting. She had to save Trooper from those massive jaws. The woman managed to get the dog out of the alligator's way, but this came at a terrible price. The alligator turned its attention to her, and in an instant it grabbed her by the leg and started to drag her toward the water. Meanwhile, 76-year-old Carol Thomas was alerted by the racket. She made her way toward the source of the agitated sounds just in time to witness the alligator attacking and dragging Gloria Surge beneath the surface. Carol Thomas was more than shocked, but despite the petrifying fear, she tried her best to help Gloria get out of the water. Carol Thomas quickly called 911 to let them know about the attack. "There's a woman in the lake. The alligator's got her," she told the operator. While she was on the phone, she spotted Gloria resurface for a split second. Desperate to help, Carol encouraged Gloria to swim toward a paddle boat that was overturned in the lake and away from the animal, but it was no use. In a matter of seconds, Gloria was once again pulled beneath the surface. But Gloria Surge was nowhere to be seen. In her heart, Carol Thomas knew there's no way she could have gotten there sooner. Some 8 minutes into the call to 911, the woman was sure Gloria was now dead. "I think she's gone. Oh my God," she told the operator. She was right. An alligator trapper was sent to the community as soon as authorities received Carol Thomas's call. The first attempts to bring the animal to the surface failed. The alligator was stubborn, and it wanted to live. Robert Lilly, the alligator trapper, later told reporters, "It was definitely a fight. We snagged him on the bottom. He never surfaced. He stayed down the whole time. We were able to get a second hook in him and a hard line in him so we could get him up. Several people struggled to get the gator out of the lake. The animal was euthanized soon after it was captured. Gloria Surge's family refused to talk to the media. Carol Thomas, the woman who tried to save Gloria, told the press that she had the chance to speak to some of Gloria's friends in the community. It's just horrible, horrible. And her friends, I spoke to a couple of her friends yesterday who are devastated, the woman said. Once again, Florida authorities had to warn residents about walking their pets near the ponds or lakes in the area. Predatory attacks can happen in a flash, and small animals are always a target for alligators. Gloria Surge was the third alligator fatality since July 2022. Despite this, authorities point out that the number of attacks in Florida is small. There had allegedly been only 26 fatal alligator attacks in Florida from 1948 to 2021. And according to the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, Florida has averaged 8 unprovoked bites per year that are serious enough to require professional medical treatment over the past 10 years. 3 more alligators have been removed from the neighborhood after Gloria Surge's death, although it is unclear whether these animals came from the same lake in which Surge died. But the lakes are connected, and gators can travel between them. Spanish Lakes Fairways HOA President Jay Mandelker said this: "If you're walking by a lake, a pond, anywhere in Florida, understand this is Florida. There could be alligators. So do not walk against the edges of any pond or lake. Stay a safe distance away."
That there is going to be flooding all over the place. And wherever there's flooding, the alligators and bull sharks are going to be everywhere. Everywhere. Way worse than Hurricane Ian, they say.
Hurricane Milton is wreaking havoc across Florida, leaving residents in a state of panic as alligators are spotted in flooded streets. Heavy rain and storm surges have forced these reptiles out of their natural habitats, leading to alarming reports of alligators swimming through neighborhoods. The sight of these powerful predators in residential areas has sent many people into a frenzy, with fear gripping the community. Videos of alligators roaming yards and streets are circulating online, further fueling anxiety among locals. "It feels like a scene from a horror movie," one resident exclaimed, capturing the essence of the fear that has taken hold.
I can't think of anything more terrifying at the moment than having a...
As the storm disrupts daily life, the unexpected presence of alligators adds an unsettling twist to an already chaotic situation. Families already on edge from the storm now find themselves looking over their shoulders, worried about what might be lurking just outside their doors. Alligator expert Christopher Gillette explained that in storms, alligators have a unique way of surviving. They just go in the water. During the hurricane, these guys will be underwater. They can hold their breath for up to 6 hours and just sit on the bottom waiting it out, he said. This astonishing ability allows them to ride out the storm without panic, but it also means that once the storm subsides, these reptiles will begin to resurface. This creates a terrifying prospect for residents who thought they were out of danger, as they may find alligators right in their backyards. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, FWC, has issued warnings, emphasizing that with the flooding, alligators may be seen much more frequently. They urge everyone to keep their distance and treat these animals with respect. Never approach an alligator, and definitely don't feed them, officials stress, reminding the public of the importance of maintaining a safe distance. If anyone believes an alligator poses a threat to people, pets, or property, they should call the FWC Nuisance Alligator Hotline at 866-FWC-GATOR. As Hurricane Milton continues its assault, the combination of rising waters and the presence of alligators has heightened tensions. Communities that usually feel secure are now fraught with anxiety, and the fear of encountering an alligator is palpable. Parents are particularly worried about their children playing outside, knowing that the usual precautions may not be enough to keep them safe from a lurking gator. Local authorities are on high alert, conducting patrols to monitor the situation. They advise residents to avoid flooded areas and to report any sightings of alligators immediately. The unpredictability of wildlife behavior during such extreme weather adds another layer of concern, as displaced alligators could venture further into urban settings than ever before. As the hurricane progresses, the FWC continues to share information about how to coexist safely with Florida's native wildlife during such events. They remind the public that while alligators rarely attack humans, they can become aggressive if stressed or provoked. The organization is working tirelessly to manage the situation and ensure the safety of both residents and wildlife. After Hurricane Milton passes, several situations could arise when alligators and crocodiles resurface. They may unexpectedly appear in residential areas, startling homeowners and potentially leading to dangerous encounters. With the flooding, these reptiles might venture closer to populated areas in search of food. As they hunt for prey or bask in the sun, the risk of aggressive behavior increases, especially if they feel threatened. It's crucial for residents to remain vigilant and report any sightings to local wildlife authorities. But it's not only alligators you have to worry about. As communities across Florida begin the challenging cleanup process after Hurricane Milton, bears are taking advantage of the chaos by searching for food. With easy access to tempting food sources left exposed in the aftermath, these curious creatures may be spotted rummaging through debris awaiting pickup by waste services. Residents in bear country should remain vigilant, as spoiled food in the post-hurricane debris could attract these animals. It's crucial to secure any food waste separately from non-food items to minimize potential encounters.
You get out of there! It's enough! Hey! That's enough!
Go home!
That's enough!
Bears can be unpredictable, and it's always better to err on the side of caution. They might forage through trash bins or wander into yards, especially if they catch a whiff of something appetizing. If you find yourself facing any bear-related issues or foresee a potential human-bear conflict, it's essential to report it to the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. You can contact FWC's regional offices during business hours or reach out to the Wildlife Alert Hotline after hours for immediate assistance. Being proactive can help mitigate any risks associated with these hungry visitors. In addition to bears, residents should be on high alert for snakes as well, as rising water levels are likely to bring these reptiles closer to homes. The increased flooding can displace snakes from their natural habitats, prompting them to seek refuge in areas that are typically safe from their presence. While most snakes encountered are non-venomous and typically more frightened of humans than we are of them, it's crucial to exercise caution. If you spot a snake, keep your distance. Most snakes will flee unless they feel threatened. The best approach is to quietly back away and allow the snake to go on its way. To avoid snake bites, it's advisable to stay out of tall grass unless wearing thick boots and to keep hands and feet away from areas you can't see. This is especially important in post-storm conditions when visibility may be poor. Local wildlife officials recommend being extra cautious during this time. If you do encounter a snake, it's best to leave it alone and allow it to pass. Taking a moment to recognize the signs of snake activity can be crucial, especially in areas prone to flooding. Stay safe and report any unusual snake sightings to local wildlife authorities. For more tips on snake safety, visit the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission's website for detailed guidelines. Their resources can help you better understand how to coexist safely with Florida's diverse wildlife. As residents navigate the aftermath of Hurricane Milton, being aware of the wildlife around them is more important than ever. By taking these precautions, you can help ensure your safety and that of your community. With the combined risks of bears foraging for food and snakes appearing in unexpected places, it's essential to stay informed and prepared for whatever might come your way in the wake of this powerful storm.
Alligators are top of their food chain, and although they typically prey on fish and mammals such as muskrat and deer, they have been known to attack humans. The circumstances surrounding these attacks are rarely more unusual than those of Jordan Rivera. It was May 23, 2023. A Florida bar was alive with locals and regulars, an unlikely bunch of people who, later that night, would be hailed as heroes. Propped up at the bar was Manny Hidalgo, along with his cat, who accompanied him wherever he went. Also at Bandito's Bar in Port Charlotte was Army veteran Trent Rozier, who was enjoying a few drinks with his fiancée. As the bar was about to close up for the night, 23-year-old Jordan Rivera headed to the bathroom. He had been enjoying a few drinks and was ready to head home. But after walking to the restroom, he found that the queue was too long, so he decided to head outside. He left the bar and walked around the back, searching for a quiet spot. The thump of the bar's music carried on the air, the sound of people talking and laughing filling the night sky. The light from the bar illuminated some water just behind the bar. It reflected off the surface, and Jordan walked towards it. He didn't realize it at the time, but what he thought was a small pond was actually a large lake. A lake that was home to some of Florida's 1.3 million alligators. In the murky light of the night, a predator lurked in the shadows. A 10.5-foot alligator submerged in the shallow water, its nostrils and eyes protruding through the surface, the only sign of a deadly reptile beneath the water. Its eyes were fixed on the young man as he stumbled nearer the lake's edge, but Jordan was blissfully unaware of the impending danger. He was meant to be gone for only a few seconds, but it turned out to be a whole lot longer than that. Before he could get close enough to the lake to urinate, he stumbled and fell. The ground gave way beneath him, and he hit the water with a splash. Confused and disoriented, Jordan began to get up, but almost immediately, something grabbed him. It latched onto his right arm. Its jaws clamped tightly above his elbow. Jordan let out a yell. An alligator had him firmly in its grip. If he didn't fight back, he could be pulled underwater. The two of them tussled. The thrashing and splashing were heard by some of the people leaving the bar. They thought that somebody was drowning and shouted to others for help. The crushing sensation of the bite on Jordan's arm was immense. It felt as though his arm was going to give way. The pressure built and built. Something had to give, and it did. Jordan's arm was ripped open, the muscles and tendons torn by the sharp teeth as the alligator shook its head from side to side, trying to take down its prey. Reports claim that his arm was ripped clean off from his body. Jordan's cries were overheard by some of the bar-goers. They rushed outside. Bar regular Manny Hidalgo rushed to the scene. He eyed the dark water carefully before grabbing hold of Jordan and pulling him out of the shallows and up the sandy bank. He was worried that the alligator would attack again. He didn't know if it was a female protecting her young or a predatory attack. He just knew that he had to get Jordan out of the water as quickly as possible. Jordan was bleeding heavily. They needed to stem the bleeding for him to have any chance of survival. That's when Army veteran Trent Rozier also ran to the rescue. He heard the commotion unfolding and thought he had heard that someone was drowning. With a cigarette in his mouth, he leapt into action and ripped off his belt. He tied it around Jordan's upper arm. Most of the arm had been severed by the alligator. Jordan screamed in pain. The belt acted as a tourniquet to reduce the blood loss. Although it was excruciating, it may just have saved the 23-year-old's life. Trent knelt on Jordan's shoulder, adding more pressure to reduce the massive blood loss. He knew that Jordan's brachial artery had been severed. He knew that the young man needed medical assistance urgently. A woman dialed 911 and relayed information to the emergency services. Jordan was writhing around in pain. He was in and out of consciousness and unaware of the crowd that had gathered by his side. He was unaware of the work that the men and women were doing to save his life. They reassured him, told him to stay awake. They called him a soldier and urged him to keep fighting. And most importantly, they applied as much pressure as they could to his open wound. No one was sure if Jordan would make it. He was losing a lot of blood. He had been attacked in the most unusual of circumstances. But the quick actions of those around him meant that he had a fighting chance when the emergency crews arrived. He was lifted onto a stretcher and into the back of an ambulance. At the Gulf Coast Hospital in Fort Myers, surgeons fought to save his arm, but in the end had to amputate it just below the shoulder. He was pumped full of antibiotics to stave off any infection from the alligator's bite. When he awoke in his hospital bed, he wasn't sure how he got there. It seems he doesn't remember much about the attack, except for losing his footing and falling into the water. When he woke up in the hospital and realized that he had lost his arm, he was very philosophical about the whole ordeal. He may have lost his arm, but at least he lived to tell the tale. He described the whole incident as like a movie. Perhaps the seriousness of his attack hadn't sunk in when he was first talking to the media from his hospital bed. He is lucky to be alive, but he will have to live with his injury for the rest of his life and his decision to take a pee in alligator territory instead of waiting in line like everybody else. His mother has hailed those who came to his aid as heroes. She's devastated that her young son has lost his arm, but knows that it could have been a whole lot worse. It's incredible that those from the bar fought to save the life of a man they didn't know. They put themselves in danger by pulling him out of the water, but it's human nature to help those in need, just like it's nature for an alligator to attack when potential prey enters its territory. Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission ordered the capture and euthanasia of the alligator. After a thorough search, the 10.5-foot giant was captured the next day and killed. Alligators are present in all counties of Florida. They are found in nearly all bodies of fresh water in the state. On average, there are around 8 unprovoked alligator attacks in Florida each year. Between 1948 to 2021, 442 unprovoked attacks have occurred in Florida, 26 of which were fatal. Although attacks like this are shocking and often make headline news, the likelihood of being attacked by an alligator in Florida is more than 3 million to 1.
Sabrina Peckham, a resilient soul, found herself in a challenging situation, living as a homeless individual in Pinellas County, Florida, near Largo. Born and raised in the Sunshine State, she knew all too well about the lurking dangers posed by alligators, which seem to pop up just about anywhere there's a sizable water body. Florida boasts a staggering alligator population, estimated to be around 1 million strong, making their homes in every significant waterway across the state. Despite this, the number of unprovoked alligator attacks averages just about 6 each year, with fatal encounters occurring roughly once every 3 years. Statistically speaking, the odds of someone in Florida falling victim to an alligator attack are a remote 1 in 3.1 million. But as we know, statistics can't soften the blow when it's you or a loved one facing the unthinkable. Sabrina had found a secluded spot in the woods, a refuge known among the homeless community. Her life had been a series of relentless struggles, starting at an early age. She had faced her share of encounters with law enforcement, grappling with the complexities of drug addiction, which strained her relationships with family. Now let's delve into a fateful night. The night of September 21st, 2023. Sabrina was making her way from the city back to her camp in the woods. Her path led her close to John S. Taylor Lake Park and Ridgecrest Park, both of which were home to sizable alligator-inhabited waters. Warning signs were posted at every park entrance and throughout the premises, serving as reminders of the lurking danger. Sabrina, well aware of the alligator's presence, had often visited these parks during daylight hours and had seen those cautionary signs. On this particular night, she ventured beyond the southern entrance of the park, crossing a bridge spanning McKay Creek, a small waterway connecting Taylor Lake to Ridgecrest Park. Unbeknownst to many, this creek served as a natural thoroughfare for alligators to move between the two lakes. The alligator lay very still on the creek's edge, blending in perfectly with the grass. Sabrina had no idea it was there as she headed toward her camp. But as Sabrina got closer to her camp in the woods, something terrifying happened. Suddenly, her feet were yanked out from under her, and she hit the ground hard. She felt an intense pain as something large clamped its jaws around her legs. She immediately knew it was an alligator. She screamed and tried to get away, but the alligator was too strong. It dragged her down the steep creek bank and into the water. Sabrina fought back as best as she could. She poked at the alligator's eyes and hit it on the head, but it wouldn't let go. Despite her bravery, she couldn't escape from the grip of a 13-foot alligator with millions of years of survival skills. Sabrina was in a frantic struggle, splashing in the creek, desperately trying to keep her head above water. But alligators are no ordinary predators. They possess a bite force exceeding 2,000 pounds per square inch. When they attack, they often use a tactic called the death roll, spinning rapidly to disorient and drown their prey or to tear apart their victim. These creatures are masters of ambush and typically hunt under the cover of darkness. The alligator was relentless, pulling and tugging at Sabrina with all its might, using its formidable strength to overpower her. Sabrina cried out, but her desperate calls for help fell on deaf ears. In a matter of minutes, the alligator had silenced her, leaving her at its mercy to become its meal. Tragically, Sabrina had no home to return to, and no one noticed her absence. Her family was accustomed to her disappearing for days or even weeks at a time. That night, she was taken by the alligator, and her cries for help went unanswered. The following afternoon, at 1:30 p.m., Jamarcus Bullard was on the same road, heading to a job interview. Suddenly, something caught his eye near the water. A massive alligator, easily over 10 feet long. It remained eerily still, almost like a statue. Jamarcus couldn't tell if it was real or fake. After a moment of uncertainty, he decided to test it, throwing a rock in its direction. That's when the gigantic reptile sprang to life, swiftly retreating into the water, leaving Jamarcus in shock and disbelief. As it hurried away, he saw something strange in its mouth. At first, he thought it might be a dummy, like a mannequin. But when he noticed the alligator's teeth stained with blood, he realized it was part of a person, a human torso. Then he rushed to the Largo Fire Department, which was very close by. Firefighters came outside and were shocked by what they saw. They could clearly see the woman's body in the alligator's mouth, and the alligator wouldn't let go. They called for more help, and soon police officers from the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office arrived around 1:50 p.m. Their job was tough. They needed to get the alligator out of the water and take care of the woman's body. It was a huge alligator with a big round belly. Then there were loud gunshots, and the alligator was no more. This scary and sad event left the people who lived nearby very surprised and scared. When word spread about an alligator attack mere feet from the woodland camp where Sabrina lived, her daughter couldn't help but hope it wasn't her mother. However, when the law enforcement officers knocked on her door that evening, she knew the grim news they were about to deliver. In that neighborhood, people were accustomed to the presence of alligators. They understood to keep a safe distance from the nearby lakes and to watch over their children closely. Alligators were a common sight, often seen strolling through the neighborhood or basking on people's porches. But this particular alligator sent shockwaves through the community. It was larger than any they had ever encountered, and the fact that it had taken a life just yards from their homes was a horrifying wake-up call. Despite Sabrina's battle with addiction, her family cherished her deeply. Her daughter, who lived nearby, always offered her mother food, money, or a ride whenever she needed it. In return, Sabrina cared for her daughter's children, a 1-year-old grandson and a 3-year-old granddaughter. Spending time with her family was Sabrina's greatest joy. Tragically, that precious time was abruptly cut short. As the family grappled with the immense void left by Sabrina's death, they sought answers. They wondered why warning signs about alligator dangers weren't posted near that creek. They yearned for someone to be held responsible. The haunting circumstances of losing a loved one in such a horrifying manner would leave lasting scars on their hearts. Following Sabrina's tragic passing, An outpouring of love and support swelled from the local community, where her daughter also resided. A week later, a candlelight vigil was held on the very bridge where Sabrina was discovered. Donations were collected to help cover her funeral expenses, a testament to the community's unity and compassion during this trying time.
The 28-year-old twin sisters Melissa and Georgia Laurie were on the trip of a lifetime. They were traveling around the world, a backpacking adventure that would test them to their limits and beyond. 3 months into their journey, they traveled through Mexico. They spent some of their time volunteering in an animal sanctuary, as well as visiting some of the incredible sights that Mexico has to offer. Traveling together meant that they always had each other's back, and that's exactly what happened on the afternoon of June 6, 2021. Traveling on a budget often means you get to see more of the country. You get to experience the place more like a local. There are no fancy hotels, private car hire, or luxury day trips. For 90 pence, Melissa and Georgia jumped into a van that would take them 10 miles away from the popular resort of Puerto Escondido to Manialtepec Lagoon. They climbed out of the van at a restaurant called El Guayacan, sitting on the edge of the lagoon. It was a beautiful, still body of water, surrounded by lush vegetation and sandy beaches. This was the starting point for their organized tour, a tour that was found out later to be illegal and hosted by an illegal tour guide. They boarded a small riverboat and motored upriver amongst the mangroves away from the lagoon, away from the approved swimming spot. But the girls were oblivious to this. They had paid for their tour, and they joined a group of other tourists also keen to see the sights. As the guide moored up the boat and cut the engine, the two girls followed the rest of the group and their guide into the water. They hadn't been drinking, they weren't being foolish. They were enjoying the refreshing coolness of the lagoon and swam out into the middle of the water, away from the bank, away from the rest of the group. What they didn't know was that this body of water was also home to crocodiles. It was a nesting ground for the huge reptiles. They used the mangroves for cover. They hunted for fish, birds, and small mammals in and around the water. Beneath the surface, they lurked. The splashing of the tourists caught their attention, and after the group had been swimming for a little while, Melissa spotted something in the water, a sight that froze the blood in her veins. Her adrenaline started pumping. Her heart was thundering in her chest as she saw the head of a crocodile pop up in the water a short distance away. It began to move. It was coming towards her. Silently, its tail powered it through the water, its eyes and nostrils above the surface. She yelled out to the others in the group, warning them that there was a crocodile, and everyone began swimming as fast as they could back to dry land. But Melissa didn't make it. The crocodile opened its jaws wide and brought them crushing down around Melissa's body. She was dragged underwater. 1 second she was there, the next she was gone. Melissa screamed as she was taken under. Thoughts of her family flashed through her mind. The thought of never seeing them again. The agonizing thought of her twin having to repatriate her body back to the UK. Of her parents having to bury their daughter. She thought she was going to die. She could feel the searing pain of the crocodile's bite, the force from its powerful jaws as it held her underwater. Georgia swam desperately towards her sister with no regard for her own safety. Melissa reappeared above the surface momentarily before being dragged back below. From the intensity of the attack, Melissa lost consciousness, and the crocodile thrashed her around in the water. Her body was being thrown from side to side like a rag doll. Then it performed a death roll. Holding Melissa in its jaws, it rolled over and over in an attempt to drown its prey, disorientating it and knocking the air from its lungs. Frantically, Georgia smacked the crocodile on the face. Its hard, armored skin felt like solid wood as Georgia punched it again and again, her knuckles pummeling it on the head and snout over and over. It worked. The crocodile let go of Melissa just long enough for Georgia to grab her. She pulled her towards the bank by her hair, trying to swim to safety, trying to make it out of the water. But the crocodile came back for more. It was determined to get its meal. It knew its prey was injured. It could taste the fresh blood, the scent of a meal. Georgia watched in horror as she and her sister were pursued by the crocodile, only its head above the water as it came in for another attack. She whacked it again and screamed. The commotion in the water, the screams, and the frantic paddling of Georgia were seen by other tourists. They scrambled to get out of the water, horrified as the attack unfolded. As Georgia fought off the 7-foot croc, it lunged at her. It grabbed her arm in its jaws, pulling at her, but she refused to give up. With her sister unresponsive next to her, she used her other hand to punch the crocodile on the nose. Stunned by the reaction, the crocodile released its grip. A tourist boat dashed to the girls' rescue. The crew hauled the twins aboard and assessed their injuries. Georgia had deep lacerations on her arm and hand and cuts to her legs. But Melissa was far worse. She was coughing up blood. Her body was covered in puncture wounds, but luckily she wasn't bleeding profusely. Drifting in and out of consciousness, Melissa felt the sensation of drowning from the blood building in her lungs. She had also breathed in a significant amount of water. Each time she came to, she screamed out and gasped for air. The pair was rushed to the hospital, Georgia holding her sister's hands and singing "Stand By Me" and "Three Little Birds" over and over again. Her voice soothing, calming her sister down, and keeping her focused on anything but the pain. It was all she could do. She couldn't let her sister go. They were soulmates, a special bond between twins. When the girls arrived at the hospital, they were both pumped full of antibiotics to stave off infection from both the water and the crocodile's mouth. For Melissa, it was touch and go. Doctors placed her in a medically induced coma, giving her the best chance of fighting off the infection. She had made it this far. Now she needed to hold on a little longer to allow her body to recover from her horrific ordeal. Following the attack, their river guide, thought to be a German national and unlicensed and unregistered within the tourist trade, fled. He hasn't been seen since. The twins' parents flew out to Mexico to be with their daughters. 5 days after the attack, Melissa was woken from her coma. Her breathing tubes were removed and she was able to breathe on her own. 6 months on from the attack, the two girls said that they still had nightmares about it and suffer from PTSD. They were lucky to make it out alive. Georgia did the right thing. She never gave up on her sister. She never stopped fighting for her. It could have all ended very differently, but they were there for each other. It was a terrifying animal attack. How many people can say that they survived a crocodile's death roll?